It's me, Courtney, and I was so very excited when I realized I was going to have the privilege to present to everyone about humanism as a learning theory. It has been quite some time since my undergrad, honestly, and we studied a lot about this, but there was a couple things that I couldn't quite remember, so this was a really nice refresher for me, and I actually learned some stuff I didn't know before along the way. So I picked up a couple of interesting facts, little tidbits, and it piqued my interest about some other things that I'm definitely going to be researching on my own at a later time. So maybe it'll do the same for you. So we'll go ahead and get started. But before we do, I did want to mention that I actually chose specifically this, the background of this PowerPoint. It is a scrapbook, and scrapbooking is something for me that I love to do. It just brings me so much joy being creative like that. I just know my abilities shine through that. I kind of feel a little bit secure expressing myself through scrapbooking, and this just kind of points out the common theme that you'll see as we talk more about this humanism and feeling safe and secure and just letting your abilities in your inner self just kind of shine through. And that is honestly just what I love about humanism as a learning theory. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. So what is humanism? At a glance, it is rooted in psychology, which I love. It just really, to me, if anything has a background in psychology, I love just to see all the inner workings going on in people's minds. So this just kind of hones in on that. Says that human beings are inherently good. So they're intrinsically motivated to meet basic needs, and those basic needs are going to be vital for human behavior. Focuses on virtue and being noble, which I love, and has ties to the Renaissance, which I didn't know, and I thought that was so cool and interesting, and where you could really just kind of see where a theory started so long ago, and then as time progressed, people just loved this ideal and they applied it into education, and I thought that was just really so inspiring. Okay, so again, humanism, from the broader picture, now we're going to focus as a learning theory, just to take a peek and hit some of the highlights. It says children are good at the core. I know sometimes we get those difficult kids and we think, oh my gosh, but they're not bad kids. They are just maybe making a bad choice, but they really, when it comes down to it, they're good kids, and that is what this theory prescribes. It says education should focus on ways to teach the whole child. So that means making sure that those needs are met to reach their full potential in education. Focuses on specific human capabilities, creativities, personal growth, and choice, which is so important for children in this theory. They've got to have that choice. It makes the child the authority, and it's very person-centered, very human-centered. Humanism, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the people that crafted this theory. So the main theorists are going to be Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers, and just something that I thought was just so, for lack of a better word, awesome. This theory of humanism in education was a response to the common educational theories of the time. So a lot of the behaviorist theories, like, they're great, they have their place, but these guys, they saw where it was just focusing almost on, it had a negative connotation for the children, and a lot of the operant. The word is operant. Operant conditioning. So a lot of the operant conditioning, they said focused more on they're only acting a certain way because they want something. So you might get that response that you are trying to elicit from them, but it's not because it's genuine or authentic. It's because they want what you have and they're going to jump through hoops to get it. Carl Rogers, he is considered the father of this movement in the early 1900s. I know we're all familiar with the hierarchy of needs. That was kind of his baby. He prescribed this pyramid, this hierarchy of needs, and there are different levels that the children will move up as their basic needs are being met. The goal, of course, is ultimately self-actualization, and that is achieving all the needs. They're all being met. So that's going to be your basic needs, your physiological needs, your safety needs, your belongingness and love needs, your esteem needs. And then at the peak, you have the self-actualization where you grow and you just become the best human being you can be. Inherently good and will make good decisions when all of their needs are being met. So that is what Maslow truly believed. And I have an example that I wrote a note in here I actually just wanted to share real briefly with you. This actually happened to me today, and it just really was weighing on my mind, so I wanted to add it in real quick. So I have a student in my class, and he makes some difficult choices for sure. And today specifically was one of those days where everything was going wrong for him. And he gets physical, and it gets to the point where he pushes other kids, hits me, hits other teachers, and it's just not a good situation for him or any of the other students to be in. And so if he's not pleased with something, his first reaction is to hit. So unfortunately, I had to remove him from the room today, and I was walking with him down the hallway, and we actually popped into another classroom, and my computer was actually there, and it was open, and I knew he liked computers, and so I was kind of trying to calm him down so I could kind of talk to him just to refresh and just reset his mind. And I was like, hey, I know you like computers, so do you want to see what I'm doing on my computer? And he was like, yeah. And I said, okay, so you know how you're a student at your school and you have work to do? Well, I'm also a student at my school, and I have some schoolwork to do, so you want to see what I'm doing? So I popped it open, and this slide was actually open, and so he said, that's a triangle. I was like, yep, sure is. So I just started talking about it, just not really expecting anything to click, and so I started going through and just saying the different steps, and it was so funny. He was saying Maslow, and I just thought it was hilarious, a 5-year-old talking about Maslow. But I went through and I was like, okay, so when you come to school, are you thirsty? Are you hungry? Are you tired? No? Okay, cool. So we moved up to the next level, and I asked, do you feel safe and secure at school? Yeah, and I was like, well, great, then you can keep on learning. You're focused on learning. And then we got to the next level, and I said, now, do you feel like you have any friends at school? And he's like, no. And it kind of got to me, and I said, well, do you think that gets in the way of your schoolwork sometime? And he kind of put his head down and was like, yeah. So we talked a little bit about that, and I thought it was really neat because we also spun it from the perspective of the other students and kind of made him realize that those other students, they're not feeling safe and secure either. So their basic needs, they're not being met, so they can't learn either. So it was just a really great discussion. So even on a level of a 5-year-old, it was just really inspiring seeing the work of Maslow just in real life. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you all. And maybe, I'm sure you have other experiences in your work or even personal life like that as well. But I just thought it was really neat, and it applied to what I was talking about today, so I wanted to share it. Next, I want to talk a little bit about Carl Rogers. His emphasis was on the psychology aspect, along with James F.T. Bugental. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm just butchering that awful. Bugental. We'll go with that. Said that there's a biological drive towards the growth of self-concept. And I was not as familiar with this chart, so I did want to go ahead and include that down there. Feel free to take a look at it. It's very interesting, and when you look at it, it totally makes sense. So that self-concept, when you have the growth of the self-concept, it in turn is going to help push towards self-actualization. So again, just building off of the work of Maslow as well. And he prescribed that learners bring out the best in themselves and are driven by their feelings more than rewards and punishments, which I will say in the case of this little boy in my class, that is very much the case. Very much the case. He gets rewards, he gets treats at home all the time. It doesn't matter what color he goes home on. He's always getting a prize, anything, at his house. 10 times better than anything we've got in our treasure box. And the next day he can still come in and have just awful behavior or just awesome behavior. He is not motivated by rewards at all, but he is motivated by relationships. I mean, it came out of his own mouth. He wants that love. He wants that unconditional love from friends. And I feel like as a teacher, that is just so important to provide for your students. And again, just when you have that unconditional love and support, it is going to bring out their best selves. So I did want to include that. So humanism in the classroom. What does that look like? So what are the teachers looking like? What do the students look like? What does your classroom environment look like? There's so many different theories going that we've been talking about, that we're going to be watching and presenting. So a lot of them, there's probably a lot of overlap, but there are some common themes in the humanism classroom, and that the first one is that the student, they make self-centered choices. Excuse me, not self-centered, the student-centered choices. It's been a long day. So they are taking control of their own learning choices or tasks. And that could look like daily activities or even future goals or somewhere in between. So they are being able to choose their own goals, their own learning tasks, and that kind of piggybacks into the next one. That learning is engaging. Guys, it is so important that the students are engaged in their learning, and that they find motivation from that learning. So if they're self-motivated, they will be inspired and they will want to learn. Will want to learn, not like they're feeling that they have to be learned or their mom is, shaking their finger, you better get this, or their teacher. They are wanting to learn. They have that intrinsic motivation where they want to learn. And again, that comes from, or a lot of it comes from those student-centered choices where they have the ownership, where they've got that authority. So in this humanism classroom, the teacher's role, it's not necessarily, they're not there to teach, but they're there to facilitate and help transition and smooth everything and just really engage the students, set them up for opportunities to work in a group setting, to discuss, again, just to really facilitate that learning that is going on in the classroom, okay? Next is self-evaluation. In humanism, the most meaningful way to evaluate learning is through self-evaluation. So the emphasis is not on grades, but is on satisfaction and excitement. Does the student feel satisfied with the work they've done? Are they excited to move on to the next unit because they've just learned so much from the previous unit and they're excited to build on and show and incorporate everything that they've learned? So this can lead to problem solving, and the learning is authentic. So if there's a problem and the students are discussing it in class, maybe it's like a STEM day and they're trying to build a boat. I know we've got a STEM day coming up later on this month, and our students will be trying to work together and given all these materials, and they're going to have to cooperatively work together to build something, a boat, that floats, that will float and will also be able to take some weight. So they're going to have to be working together. As a teacher, I will be facilitating this, and they're not getting a grade for it, but they're excited to learn. And the problem that they're solving, it leads to very authentic learning. So testing is not by memorization or rote, and doesn't, so rote testing doesn't lead to meaningful learning. So that is a huge emphasis with this theory as well. And again, in a humanism classroom, you're going to see a safe learning environment. It's got to be safe. Going back to those basic needs, do you feel safe? Can you work in an environment that's not safe? Probably not. So it's going to be safe. And something that is so important, feelings and knowledge should not be separate. They are intertwined. So feelings are valued. Feelings are so important in a classroom that focuses on humanism. Okay, now everything sounds so good, right? Yep, I hear you saying that. But what is the catch, Courtney? Well, I'm going to tell you. There are a few, probably more than a few, potential pitfalls in humanistic learning. It assumes that the individual is intrinsically good. So is that student going to make a good decision? I don't know. So, life. So learning styles might not be a good fit, and I could almost feel myself on the last page when I was reading something just kind of cringing, because as much as I really agree with this learning theory, there's a couple things that just kind of crawl under my skin, and one of those pertains to this. So if a student is more kind of by the book, so to speak, and they appreciate those tests, those written exams, they want to see what grade they've gotten on an exam. They read their chapter, they want an exam, not to just prove to the whole world, but to themselves. And I guess some people don't need that, and I don't need that, but I like it. And I feel like this is a picture of me probably in a 6th grade classroom if it was humanistic, and this would be me yelling, I just want to show how much I know. Because I feel like we all kind of have a little bit of a competitive edge sometimes, and in humanism that's not the case. So there is a lack of competitiveness. So that's another pitfall of this theory, so to speak. Another thing is that student time might be monopolized in those peer groups. So a large focus is on the students working together, cooperating, collabing together. But what happens if maybe one person is a little bit too talky, or just is like one of those fast answers or quick answers? They could potentially be monopolizing the time for someone that might be a little bit more reserved to speak out, just real super quick. So that's another criticism. Also, it is, this is a hard area to study. It's very vague, and that's because a lot of the data is so subjective. You can't prove necessarily someone's experiences, because they're different to everyone. Your experience with something might be completely different than mine, and so those experiences cannot easily be objectified. So those are some potential issues with this theory in the classroom. And this is just a word splash that I made, since I know the last class we didn't talk about it, but there were some images of it, and it just reminded me of just something that we did last semester in Mary's class, and I just wanted to make one with a lot of these keywords that we had that I had presented to you in this presentation. So humanistic learning theory, I see student choice in there, rooted in the Renaissance, which I absolutely love. I can't wait to kind of look into that some more. Person-centered, people-centered, engaged. You've got to have that engaged teacher, so those students are engaged. Self-actualization. What kind of student, what kind of person, more importantly, are you to become? So your basic needs have to be met for that. I see Carl Rogers. I see feelings are validated. Abraham Maslow, innately good. That is so important to me. Inspired to learn. Student choice, a student-centered, teacher as a facilitator, whole child focus. The whole child. The whole child's needs are being met. So important. Love it. These are the resources. I could not have done this alone on my own, so I used a Western Governors University article. It was so interesting. It had a lot of great points that just kind of got my gears thinking. And then, of course, the PowerPoint that Jan provided us last class. There was just so much information on there about my theory and some other theories that I just really liked to dissect and enjoyed that. There was another article specifically on Maslow that I found was just really, really detailed and thorough, and I really enjoyed learning more about that. And then an article that I thought was so just interesting, and it was really funny that I came across this article this way. It was about comparing Carl and Fred Rogers together and the social behavior and personality of the two, because a lot of their theories, we all know Mr. Rogers, a lot of their theories in regards to children and how they best learn to best become themselves were very similar, and there was a lot of overlapping in sort of the same time period. So I had thought about it in my head actually first, and I was curious if they were related. They're not. And so my research led me to this article, which I was like, oh my gosh, so it was a lovely read. And then of course, word art, where I got the word splash, or the word art cloud from earlier. And then I just want to leave you with this quote by Fred Rogers. It says, knowing that we can be loved exactly as we are gives us all the best opportunity for growing into the healthiest of people. And I cannot stop smiling, because I grew up, like probably a lot of you, or maybe some of your children, grew up watching Fred Rogers. He was my neighborhood friend, and something that I didn't mention talking about earlier, but my friend, my little friend in my class that is difficult sometimes, or makes difficult choices. I always say when I see him on the road, just kind of, I say, oh, come over here, be my neighbor. I need to have a Mr. Rogers moment with you. Come sit by me, be my neighbor. Just because. And so I thought this was just so special and just so lovely, just to leave us with such a nice thought. And I keep this little figure of Mr. Rogers on my desk, and I knew I was going to be making this recording, so I brought him home, and he just says some lovely things. So listen to this.
There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are.
I just think that's so sweet. And he was not a theorist, but I feel like he probably could have been. So with that being said, guys, I will leave you with this beautiful quote and just a simple smile, and I hope that you were interested in what I had to present to you. I hope you learned some things. I'm sure you probably knew a ton of that just because you're all incredible women, and have a lovely evening, and I just can't wait to see y'all again, guys.